Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Thomann's Guitars and Basses. My name is Guillaume, and today I'm going to be doing what I usually do, but this time with the cameras turned on, and that is assembling pedal boards. Now, I thought this would be a neat format, maybe it's going to be a recurrent thing, you guys let me know, but what I'm going to be doing is picking some themed pedal boards and show you guys some tips and tricks as to how to make that board as clean, as efficient, as visually satisfying as possible. And today's theme is the top 5 most expensive pedals available at Thomann right now. So it's going to be a 5 pedals pedal board. We're going to go through the pedal selection, then the board prep, then the pedal prep, and finally the general assembly, as well as a little bit of a sound sample. And pedal number 1 for the day is the Evil Filter by Death by Audio. Now this is probably one of the most overkill monster of a fuzz. It's an amp killer. It is extremely high output. It is extremely gnarly. The filter is really cool as well, and it is extremely expensive. So that's going to be our first pedal on this board. Pedal number 2 for the day is the JHS Pedal Double Barrel V4. Now this one is not the most expensive overdrive that we have, but it is the most expensive that we have in stock at the moment. I think it's around $450. It's an insanely good dual drive that does the blues breaker thing, as well as I think the tube screamer kind of circuit on the right side. So really cool. That's going to be our overdrive for that board. And pedal number 3 for today is going to be the Meris LVX. Now that thing is absolutely overkill in every sense of the term, whether it's about the algorithms, the sounds, the quality of the sounds that we've grown to know and love from Meris, but also the amount of controls that you have on the pedal, on top of the fact that it is extremely expensive. So that's going to be our delay for this board. And that takes us to pedal number 4 for today, which is no other than the Eventide H9 Harmonizer. Again, I know you guys are going to be like, but there's more. It's like, yes, but not currently in stock. The H9 is tried and true. It's every modulation that you can possibly hope for with the best sound quality. It's on every pro board, so it's going to be on this one. And that takes us to our final pedal for this board, which is the New Neighbor Audio Illumine. It is a phenomenal stereo in and out reverb, and it is very expensive. It sounds extremely good. So that's going to be our reverb spot for this board. Now that we have our 5 pedals, let's go on to the second step, and that is preparing the board to receive those pedals. And the first thing that I like to do when I've got my pedals and my board ready is to flip the board and start by putting everything that's going to go underneath the pedal platform. So anything like this, the Dario Expand obviously, but most of the pedal boards available right now are going to give you a lot of space underneath to mount everything that you don't need access to. And that's obviously going to be our power supply. Today I'm going to be using this Strymon Zoomer because it also is very expensive and it's very good. So I'm going to place that power supply first. And then I'm also going to run a buffer today, that is the Empress buffer, and that's going to double as my interface into the board and out to the amp. So I'm also going to place that underneath because I don't need any access to it. Now obviously there's a couple more things that you have to keep in mind. This particular board has already the soft pedal board tape at the bottom. If yours do not, you're going to have to add that. So think about this beforehand. If your buffer, power supply do not have any other mounting solutions, like a lot of the Chocs stuff, and have different mounting brackets for different types of pedal boards. So you might have that. In this case, do it properly. That's the most secure way to install your power supply. But any sort of pedal board tape or 3M lock type thing is going to do the job as well. One thing that I forgot to mention is, like on every other pedal board, I'm going to add a tuner. I'm using the Strobo Stomp by Peterson, and yeah, I just forgot to say it, so I'm going to put that on the board as well. And like that, we're getting onto pedal sort of layout on the board, and that's definitely going to be one of the most important steps. Now, quick tip before you do, grab yourself a roll of tape or something like that, because most boards are going to be tilted, and until you have pedal board tapes at the bottom of the pedals, they will slip and they might fall to their tragic death, and we do not want that. But Now your board's ready, you've got tape on top. And, before you do anything to the pedals, we're gonna have a look at our layout. We want to do that before the tape is on, because mostly if you're using 3M lock, for example, it's going to be really, really hard to take them on and off and on and off again as you do your layout. So let's have a look. Let's start placing our pedals, see what makes sense, and because obviously we want to keep access to the things we need access to for all the dual or quadruple switch pedals. So yeah, let's just have a look. All right, now I'm super happy with that layout. I think I'm gonna stick with it because this is what makes more sense cable-wise as well. Now, this is not something that's mandatory, even less so if you are going to use a switcher or looper of any sort, but knowing that I'm gonna go from fuzz to overdrive to maybe tuner, modulation, delay, reverb, it sort of flows through the board naturally. So if you're not using any sort of switcher and you want to keep your cable length as short as possible, it's a good thing to keep in mind that, you know, your signal chain is going to run in a particular order, so you might be better off keeping the pedals somewhat in the same order. All right, so I'm going to start by flipping the board, again, removing my gigantic roll of gaffer tape. I know where my pedals are going to go. I know how many pedals I have on the board now. That is a very, very important moment in any sort of pedal board build, is assessing the needs of each pedal. Do we have 9 volts everywhere? Do we have reverse polarity? How many milliamps or amps does each pedal need to function? Because that's going to dictate obviously how many power cables you're going to need, just about where they're going to go depending on the amount of power they need. On something like a modular power supply where you have the option to switch to 12 or 18 volts, make sure that those power leads are going to the right place to be plugged into the right pedal. Now, in my particular case, I have 5 pedals plus the tuner and the buffer that will also need power. They are all running off of 9 volts. Some of them have the option to be run at a higher voltage, but I'm not going to do that today. So I know I have 7 power hungry devices on the board, excluding one that's going to be powered separately. So I'm going to need 6 power cables going out of the regular 9 volt out of my power supply. All right, now don't worry too much about the cable management. We will go back to that because today we're not using cut to length power cables. So we are going to have some slack, but we do want to make sure that everything is plugged in so that when we cable manage this board, we have just enough length going to each of the pedals. So just run them on the side so that when you flip the board over, you have your leads ready to go on the top of the board. Now that our power cables are ready, we're going to start plugging in our pedals and placing them on the board. Now, a good thing to obviously keep in mind is the sequence of the pedals, because that's going to, if you want to, for example, label your power supply to know which output corresponds to which pedals, you want to make sure that you know, okay, this is my lead number 2, this is lead number 3, here we have 4, 5, and here we have 6, so that we know, okay, for example, lead number 1 being the buffer, we know that lead number 2 is going to power our evil filter. So we can already sort of place it like that, and we know that's going to be number 2. And we can already start placing them on the board. The thing is, at this stage, you're going to have to take them out to some extent to put the patch cables in anyways. But I think we've already sort of minimized to a maximum the amount of times we're going to have to sort of scratch in the pedals in and out of the board, basically. So keep which leads is which in mind and start plugging in your power cables. It seems that everything has power. Now, when that happens and you see like, okay, this works, this works, this works, this works, everything is fine, all of those are getting enough power. This one's not turning on though. Before you start panicking, make sure that it's not because it needs to have a jack cable plugged in. And that is the case for this one. It's going to be the case for a lot of other pedals. So before you start panicking and plugging things in and out, make sure that you have a patch cable plugged into the inputs of that particular pedal. And now everything works. Beautiful. And now, just for the sake of trying, we're also going to plug in the Eventide to make sure that that specific power supply is working. And it is. All right, we got power to everything. This is our first step. Every pedal works, the power supply works, every output is nice and tidy. So now it's going to come time to plug in our patch cables. So what you want to start by doing with your already pre-cut patch cables is to size them, basically. You're going to have a look at your board and think, okay, I need to go from here to here, from here to here. So like that distance, I'm pretty sure that small boy can cover, but from here to there, I'm going to need a longer patch cable. So you're going to do that first and sort of order your patch cables depending on where they're going to go in the signal chain. Keep that in mind now, because otherwise you're going to start plugging things in and out, taking some pedals out, flipping the board, and it's not the right size, and you're going to have to grab something while you're holding the board with your elbow. It's just unpractical. It's not impossible, but if you prepare for it now, you won't have to think about it later. So now that we have an idea of which patch cables goes where, we're going to unplug the power and start doing our audio cables. All right, so that's our patch cabling done. Obviously, as I mentioned before, because we are using pre-cut cables, we don't have as much flexibility in terms of cable management. So right now, the cables are fine. They're tied underneath. It looks really good from the top. Everything's plugged in correctly. There's a couple of things that I would recommend. If you are cutting your patch cables to length, try and run them from the bottom so that there's nothing hanging out from the edge of your board, because that might be an issue if you're using anything but a hard case for your pedal board, basically. Once you have your cables cut to length for that specific pedal board, then run zip ties at the bottom with those little stickers, and you can loop the zip ties in order to keep everything super nice and tidy. Again, if I start using cut to length patch cables for every single episode of those boards that are just a demonstration purpose, it's going to be very wasteful, so I'd rather not do that for now. But it is a good board. Everything is plugged in correctly, going from our interface back to our interface, so we have our in and out right there. Now, once everything is done, we're going to plug power back in, make sure that this is still working properly, and then we'll go to a sound demo. All right, and now that we're all patched up and powered, I'm gonna plug that into an amp, make sure that each and every pedal works in several modes, get some sounds out of it, and wrap the thing up. All right, and that's it. I'm super happy that first off it worked on the first try, and super happy with the sounds that I got. This is the most expensive 5-pedals board available right now. Now, does it sound like it? Does it sound as expensive as it is? You guys should let me know in the comments. Also, please do tell me if you want to see more episodes like this one. Should we make it a weekly thing, a monthly thing? What kind of pedal boards do you want? How should we name it? This pedal show? Or geez, pedalboard extravaganza? I don't know. Pitch your names, ideas in the comment section once you're done liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Obviously, take really good care of yourselves, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye, guys.